Hi, friends. Recently, I assigned you on Epic to read this book, Frog and Toad, right here. And the cool thing about this book was that it says on the bottom right there, it says, read to me. So this book was accessible to everybody who is in our class. If this was a just right book, then you didn't have a problem with it. If it was too easy, then you really got to focus on the characters and what those characters are like. And if it was a hard book for you, you could just click on it and you could say, hey, read that to me by pressing the play button.
Welcome to the wonderful world of reading. In this I Can Read story, Frog and Toad are friends. You will be going on a fun adventure. Are you ready to read? Here we go.
So the first thing I hope that you did when you looked at this story was you were looking at the cover of this book. The cover of the book in this case is just this right here. We can see the pictures of Frog and Toad sitting together and they're enjoying tea in front of a window. And so once again, we can look at that and we can figure out so much just by looking at these pictures. I look at them drinking tea and I know they enjoy having tea parties together and they probably spend time chatting and being friends. In fact, in the title of the book, it says Frog and Toad are friends. If I look over at the left-hand side of the screen, where it shows the actual cover, not the inside page, I can see that they're sitting on a stump, and it looks like Frog is reading a book to Toad, and Toad is listening. They look like they're outside, so I realize they like to read together, and they like to be outside. If I look a little bit below that, I can see something that says, from writing letters to going swimming, telling stories to finding lost buttons, Frog and Toad are always there for each other. So just by looking at this page right here, I'm learning so much about Frog and Toad. Not only do they like to read to each other and go outside, not only do they like to have tea together, but I also read that they write letters, go swimming, tell stories, find lost buttons, and they are there for each other. They are true friends who are supporting one another.
Spring. Frog ran up the path to Toad's house. He knocked on the front door. There was no answer. Toad! Toad! Shouted Frog. Wake up! It is spring! Blah, said a voice from inside the house. Toad! Toad! Cried Frog. The sun is shining! The snow is melting! Wake up! I am not here, said the voice.
I hope that you noticed the difference between Frog and Toad and the way they are on the inside. Not just things that we see on the outside, but the way they act. I'm going to keep playing this for just a moment more to get your brains remembering what you read last week when we were getting ready for this assignment and looking at this story.
Frog walked into the house. It was dark. All the shutters were closed. Toad, where are you? Called Frog. Go away, said the voice from a corner of the room. Toad was lying in bed. He had pulled all the covers over his head. Frog pushed Toad out of bed. He pushed him out of the house and onto the front porch. Toad blinked in the bright sun. Help, said Toad. I cannot see anything.
I hope that as you're listening to the story and looking at the pictures, you're still gathering more information about the personalities of Frog and Toad. I bet you in your mind you are noticing the differences between Frog, who is the green one, and Toad, who is the brown one, and what they're like. Who's happy? Who's grumpy? And I hope you're remembering and looking and noticing all those details. Let's keep listening for a moment longer, and when this chapter is over, we will get to the purpose of our lesson.
"Don't be silly," said Frog. "What you see is the clear, warm light of April. And it means that we can begin a whole new year together, Toad. Think of it," said Frog. "We will skip through the meadows and run through the woods and swim in the river. In the evenings, we will sit right here on this front porch and count the stars." "You can count them, Frog," said Toad. "I will be too tired. I am going back to bed." Toad went back into the house. He got into the bed and pulled the covers over his head again. "But Toad," cried Frog, "you will miss all the fun." "Listen, Frog," said Toad. "How long have I been asleep?" "You have been asleep since November," said Frog. "Well then," said Toad, "a little more sleep will not hurt me. Come back again and wake me up at about 1/2 May. Good night, Frog." "But Toad," said Frog, "I will be lonely until then." Toad did not answer. He had fallen asleep. Frog looked at Toad's calendar. The November page was still on top. Frog tore off the November page. He tore off the December page, and the January page, the February page, and the March page. He came to the April page. Frog tore off the April page, too. Then Frog ran back to Toad's bed. "Toad, Toad, wake up! It is May now." "What?" said Toad. "Can it be May so soon?" "Yes," said Frog. "Look at your calendar." Toad looked at the calendar. The May page was on top. "Why, it is May," said Toad as he climbed out of bed. Then he and Frog ran outside to see how the world was looking in the spring.
All right. So now that we've finished listening to that first chapter, and I know that you read the rest of this book, so you learned even more about Frog and Toad than we did just then. And I know that whenever I watch an episode of my favorite show, I just can't wait to talk to someone else who watched it. I talk about the parts I remember most, or the parts that made me think or wonder something, or maybe parts that surprised me or made me laugh, but I especially like to talk about what the characters were doing. And it's the same in books. So today, your job will be to meet with a friend in a breakout room. I will put you in the breakout room with one of your classmates, or two of your classmates, or even three of your classmates, and you can go talk about Frog and Toad and what you noticed about Frog and Toad. I want you to talk about your favorite parts of the stories. I want you to talk about parts that were surprising. I want you to talk about parts that were funny. But mostly, I just want you to talk about Frog and Toad and the information you have gathered. When you're finished talking with your partners, I'll give you about 5 to 7 minutes. I will close your breakout rooms, and that will be your signal to head over to your Seesaw, open up the assignment, and to make a recording about something new that your partner noticed about Frog and Toad that maybe you didn't notice. Maybe you did notice, but it didn't seem like as big of a deal to you until they said it. Make a recording of what you and your partner talked about and share it with me on Seesaw. Thank you for working with me today, friends. See you next time.